Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly college basketball roundtable. I am the Big Man on Campus, your host, as always, joining you all back here live with my panel. We are breaking down college basketball. We're breaking down what happened in college basketball, taking your questions. We're brought to you by uwager.eu. I want to welcome back my panel. It's an interesting time to be a college basketball fan, a college basketball handicapper. We're getting into the nitty gritty now. Drew Martin, how you doing today?
Big man, I'm doing good, man. Yeah, like you said, nitty gritty from the Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight. Got some good teams left and some surprises, but overall excited to talk about it.
I know one person we won't have around is LeVar Ball anymore. Take it easy,
Yeah.
LeVar. Hopefully we don't have to see you again for a while. Ed Fang, welcome in.
Thanks, big man. Great to be here. Actually stayed up till the end of that game last night. Excited to talk about it. Heck of a finish to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it was our first buzzer beater in 60 games. We didn't have any. That was the first. I was on Florida, so I had written it off. I know if you follow me on Twitter, you saw it. I was not happy with the late game shenanigans. We'll talk about that. Donnie Rightside, how you doing this morning?
Hey, man, doing good. Kentucky buoyed. A nice night for us over here. A nice, easy landing. Didn't have to sweat that one out versus UCLA. And yes, Mr. Ball is now out of the tournament. And, Jeff, I did appreciate late last night watching the game. You threw it out there that you already lost. The gamblers reverse jinx that never fails came in for you. Congratulations, man.
You know, Donnie, I don't know if you've known me for a long time. I've almost perfected that with the gambler's jinx. I always seem to do that, and it always seems to work for me. Ian Cameron, last but not least, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, big man. How can I not be great? Last night, top-rated 2-unit best bet winner, South Carolina, and I get rid of Baylor and that goofball Scott Drew in the process. How can I not be great?
Yeah, you've been. I know many of us have been critical of him. You've been pretty adamant about him, and yeah, there was a guy on Twitter the other day trying to sell me on Scott Drew as a coach, and I just got to the point. You never get to that point in an argument where you're just like, okay, whatever. Have your opinion. I'm not going to argue anymore about it. But yeah, so yeah, where do we start? Let's start with a team that's out. But I want to talk about their late game malfunction, if you will. What was Arizona doing late in the game against Xavier? Obviously had a chance to win. You're pretty much at home here. You're playing a team you need to beat and you should beat. What was the offense they were running late in the game? I mean, some poor hero ball played by Arizona. Is that coaching? What is that? What did we see with Arizona? What was that?
You know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's where was Lauri Markkanen? Why did we just all of a sudden not go back to him, find him, get him some inside touches late in that game for Arizona? As Jackie Charles from Seinfeld says that's deplorable, unfathomable, improbable. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to me that Lauri Markkanen got ignored. I mean, it became the Alonzo Trier jack-up contested shot show with hand in the face, impossible shots that weren't going to go in. I know he was feeling good. He was on a nice roll in the last, 10 or 15 minutes of that second half, but it got to the point where it was like he thought it was heat check time. Well, you don't go into heat check time in a tie game or in a close game in the last 2 minutes, and that's exactly what happened. They settled for the perimeter. They died with the three ball. That's exactly what happened to Arizona. They forgot about the inside game. I don't know if that's on Sean Miller. I don't know if that's on the players just not doing things the right way in terms of an inside-outside balance, but they just totally ignored the inside game and inside scoring, and it doomed Arizona in the end. Just terrible execution. As it was a good end game for Xavier, but I think it was a worse end game for Arizona, much worse.
And again, I want to bring up one other one that did the same thing. But you look at the last, I don't know, 4 games that ended in close, proximity, i.e. Michigan, Xavier, Gonzaga. Even last night with that Florida game every game ends on a 3-point shot. It's just a game nowadays, I guess. But no real execution late in games. I mean, with Xavier particularly, that Arizona team had no execution. And I want to go to you. You were low on Arizona. You didn't like this team. And I want to thank great job. You were right on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Just getting back to the hero ball bit, I feel like, it's a college-wide phenomenon. I mean, what team is not doing hero ball towards the end of the game? I mean, my favorite example was when West Virginia was thumping Kansas at the Phog. I mean, just a picture perfect, beautiful game of passing and teamwork. And it's a tie game at the end of regulation, and I think Black jacks up a contested three to try to win the game. And I'm like, I mean, it's just amazing. I don't think we can single out Sean Miller. I think all these teams do it. It's not to their benefit. I actually thought Michigan got a pretty decent shot.
Well, for their standards, they did. But if you're Derek Walton, you can go to the rim there. Probably get fouled.
Didn't he have a pretty bigger defender on him, though?
He might have. All I'm saying is I get it for Michigan. I didn't have a bigger problem with that just because that's kind of what Michigan does as an offense. But, I mean, you're going to go to the rim, you're going to get fouled probably. I mean, it's a much more high percentage shot. I think we all know that. But, again, I didn't have much of a problem with Michigan. It was the West Virginia and these Arizona. West Virginia, their last possession was something out of – I don't know what that was.
Bad.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
I mean, it also showed, like, I've also been banging this, like, Gonzaga's really good on both sides of the ball.
Sure.
And you saw what those athletes could do on that last possession. I think you got to give the Zags credit there.
Oh, sure.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, their defensive efficiency is very high, and I think that's going to come to play in today's game. Drew, Ian, Donnie, any opinion on the just failures of these late game offenses?
Yeah, I mean, take a look at just the games on its whole, and I know everybody was watching front and center last night if they stayed up in Madison Square Garden. When did it get to the point where you can dominate a team for maybe an entire half and you're up 5, 6, 7, 8 points with 3 minutes to go, and you decide it's best to walk it up court, dribble the ball at half court, run it down to 6 seconds, and get a terrible shot off? I don't know when, like, I'd much rather my team go down losing aggressively. And I don't mean coming up the court and jacking up a three with 22 seconds on the shot clock, but why not run your normal offense? So what if there's 11 seconds on the clock and you have a wide open three? Bury it and win the game. It's a much better option than standing at half court and just waiting for the game to end.
This is another major problem in college basketball. I've seen it time and time again this year. And I don't want to get graphic here. These coaches, walking the ball up the court, taking the shot clock down to 5, and trying to go to the rim, throw up a shot, doesn't even hit the rim, and okay, well, at least we took time off the clock. You're not running your offense. You're not scoring points. Florida had egg on their face at the end of that half or end of that game. Luckily, he got bailed out. Anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah, how ironic that Showalter's shot and Chiozza's shot right at the end of that game. It's like the identical shot. I mean, it's like you saw the same shot, just different team, different jersey. It was an incredible finish. I mean, it's just who was going to screw up the most was going to be the one that ended up losing that game. One last point about Arizona. I saw some nut job on Twitter say Sean Miller should be on the hot seat now. Are you serious? Like 4 friggin' Sweet 16s in 8 years with him as the head coach. Ask Boston College if they'll take Sean Miller. Ask Oregon State if they'll take Sean Miller. Ask any of those low-life basement feeder teams if they'll take Sean Miller. I mean, it's ridiculous. To get that crap opinion out of here.
I think there would be at least probably 150 teams that would take him. Yeah, look, I get the issues of they think they should have made a Final Four now, and I agree with them. But listen, I mean, just wait till next year. They got a great team coming in. They're going to be great next year.
Well, and they were a couple shots away in 13 and 14, right? From actually, I mean, they had some close games against very good Wisconsin teams.
Right. They had some good teams back then, too. I mean, put a lot of kids in the league. Again, I get they're annoyed, but this is a perennial Final Four caliber team every year. They'll get there. Just like, again, they're not going to, it's going to take some time, but they'll be fine. She shouldn't be on the hot seat. That's ridiculous. Drew Martin, you've been waiting. What do you have for me?
Well, Big Man, I was just going to say, like, you were right on the Arizona there, and it is becoming a phenomenon. I mean, the West Virginia one was absolutely ridiculous. I had money on that game, and their end there was just awful. Right. And I'll also throw a caveat with Florida's being awful as well, and throw some props to you on the money line, because I was one of those that kind of got burned with Florida, thinking I had the win, and then, laying points -1, you got the push. Even -2, there was a lot of people holding those tickets, and they got the outright loss. So taking the money line in a -1 game, like you were saying, it actually came true last night. So props to you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, look, it's not something that, listen, it doesn't happen that much. Probably in a season, it might affect you 5-6 times. But look, these lines we already know are all sharp. I mean, I don't think anyone needs to
especially at
argue
this
that.
point in the season.
Right,
You know,
right.
a lot of
There's 4
data out
games.
there.
Right. There's 4 games in the card. For me to spend, and I actually got at 110, the money line at 110, but to spend 5-10 cents to get it up to 115, whatever, difference between winner or lose. I'm not looking to push. I'm not looking to take my money and say, you know what? I'm unscathed tonight. I want to win. I don't want to lose. I don't want to push. I want to win. And yeah, at the end of a game, I don't want to worry about that point or two. Florida and Wisconsin, great transition, Drew. Look, I mean, Wisconsin shoots 51%. Problem is, though, and I said this in my own breakdown of the game when I sent this out, I thought the difference would be free throws. Wisconsin misses 10 free throws. Wisconsin, I will give them credit, though. Twice in the second half, they were down double digits. They fought back. It was a great game. And again, I don't know what Mike White was doing in the game there. I also don't understand why you're not fouling on an inbound situation before the Zach Showalter shot. I don't get that at all. I don't understand why coaches – I mean, how many times do we have to watch Bronson Koenig hit a 3 in a big tournament game before you say, you know what? We're going to foul here.
I think I'm willing to give White a small pass on the fouling situation. Altman wanted to foul Walton last night or Thursday night against Michigan, and they didn't get the foul on Walton, and he got that 3-point off. Luckily, they got away with it. He missed, but Altman said after the game in his post-game press conference, we wanted to foul Derek Walton. We didn't want to give him that shot, 3-point shot to tie the game. So players didn't execute what the coach wanted them to do. That might have been the case with Florida last night as well, in that last seconds before Showalter hit that one.
Yeah,
I
I
also
guess,
think
go ahead, Ed.
Wisconsin's Trice really goofed on that last play. I mean, Hayes is kind of trying to come over and double him as the Florida guy's coming up the court, and Trice is just like, okay, take this shot at the 3-point range. You know,
Yeah.
I gotta think you run straight to that 3-point line, at least get a hand up, which may affect that shot, may not, but I mean, he's completely out of the picture.
Yeah, again, and this is something where sometimes at the end of games, like you see quality defensive stands at the end of games, like how they, block the inbound. There was no guarding the inbound there. They basically allowed Chiozza to catch the ball, had Nigel Hayes on him, who, I mean, he's clearly faster than Trice is in some other world on that list. I don't know where he was. But, little things like little points of depth. I mean, Florida had a little bit better depth, I thought. And look, I mean, how about Kayvon Allen? I mean, Kayvon Allen coming into this game was 3 for 21. He even started out in this game 0 for 2. Drops 35, hits 4 threes, 9 for 10 from the line. That was the difference for them, clearly. He came to play last night finally, and they escape, which is what you need to do in this game late in this tournament. One more thing, guys. UCLA, Kentucky, a great game there nonetheless. I know it ended up being an 11-point win for Kentucky. Sets up Kentucky UNC. Should be a great game on Sunday. I want to take a poll. Raise your hand if you're happy that for at least the next 6 months, LeVar Ball is out of our hands. Anyone want to raise their hand? I will.
Well, but he's not, right?
He is,
I mean,
because his middle son is nowhere near as good as Lonzo is. So I think we have a little bit of solace in knowing that.
True, but I mean, ESPN knows this guy's a good headline. So I mean, we're gonna see it right through the draft.
Right.
And
he was on Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio yesterday. Why? Why was he on Phil? Like, he's literally everywhere.
He's a story.
Can't escape the guy.
I mean, yeah, if you want your ears to bleed, watch that Stephen A. and Ball garbage. What a contrived piece of shit that was. Holy
I will say I was on Steven's side for the first time in a while. But let's, guys, transition into some of the games today. Obviously, the games are dwindling down. I will ask before we get into the big boys, anyone want to talk about Furman Campbell or St. Peter's Texas State? Raise your hand.
That's the big man.
No,
I'm
He's
kidding.
the only one.
No, I would only talk about it if you guys wanted to. But don't forget those games, guys. Get NIT coming up on Monday. Still some decent games left. Still some decent sides left. And today, some decent ATS teams. All 4 of these teams very good against the spread. when line. So definitely keep a lookout for that. But let's jump into some of the games today and tomorrow. First one, tactically, you don't have to give a pick if you want, but we'll gladly welcome it. Gonzaga laying 7.5 over under 145. They face upstart Xavier. Ian Cameron, I want to ask you because we all had very good predictions this year. Several of us, including myself, were pretty low on Xavier. What has this team done to get to this point?
Well, it's a team that won 2 games in February. 2 games, both against DePaul.
Right.
I mean, can you believe that? And here they are now in the Elite Eight, just absolutely wrecking my opinion that they were absolutely barely. I thought maybe not even going to be a tournament team. That's number one. Number two, had no chance, no shot, none, zero. Of doing anything here in this NCAA tournament. And here they are now in the Elite Eight. I got to bring it out because I am legitimately shocked. Xavier is this far here in the NCAA tournament. You know what? Give him credit. Give Chris Mack a ton of credit because they got this tweaked the rotations. This Bernard guy has come in and been fantastic for them. Secondary scoring for Blewett. It's been huge for Xavier down the stretch. The big man, O'Mara, what a game he had against Arizona. Can he keep that up? Him against Shemet Karnowski here in this game. It could be an interesting little battle inside. Give Xavier credit. I'm not going against them today, that's for sure, catching all these points with this serious momentum that they have. But I am convinced Gonzaga is a better team defensively than Arizona. I think Ed would be willing to agree with me on that because of how anti-Arizona he had been. Gonzaga, to me, is going to defend Xavier a lot better, a lot tougher than Arizona did. I think Gonzaga's got a little bit more poise late in the game to avoid a late game collapse, to have a pitiful end game like Arizona did against Xavier. Now, West Virginia, they didn't have a great end game Gonzaga the other night, but they still locked in defensively when they had to. Just a brilliant defensive possession against West Virginia at the end. Now, you could say West Virginia was a mess offensively, didn't know what the hell they were running, but still, Gonzaga locked them down, preserved the victory in that game. I have a Gonzaga future ticket in my pocket, so that's the nice thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bet Xavier money line in this game because it makes sense for me to do that, at least protect the future a little bit in case an upset happens. But I do think Gonzaga advances. Will or won't they cover remains to be seen. Gonzaga 0-3 against the spread in this tournament. They've had a tough time covering these numbers. Haven't covered a number yet here in the big dance. And with Xavier's momentum on their side, be reluctant to lay points here.
I think the covering aspect is just because I don't think they played their best game in this tournament. They've been really, to be honest, lucky to survive in certain games. But you look at SBR, I'm looking at SBR odds as we speak, and you see some 8s out there. Actually starting to see a lot of 8s pop up. 5 dimes, bet online, you wager, Intertops, a lot of 8s. So if you're looking to the underdog here, obviously there are some 8s. Make sure you're getting the best of it. But again, guys, comment on Gonzaga. I mean, Ed, you're a numbers guy. You can talk about how good Gonzaga is defensively and how Xavier hasn't seen a team this good on the defensive end. That's what's kept them in games. That's what's allowed Gonzaga to prevail against the West Virginias of the world, this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you kind of looked at the second half of that game, I feel like Gonzaga didn't get many bounces of the ball, a lot of loose balls going out of bounds, a lot of 85, 90% foul shooters missing foul shots. These things happen. This is why these games are close. They survived. And I feel like a broken record saying, well, I mean, Gonzaga is just too good on both sides of the ball. I have Xavier as the 64th ranked in terms of defensive efficiency. So they're not an elite team on that side of the ball. I think it's Gonzaga is going to be too much for them. I think the 8 is probably a pretty fair number.
Yeah, I see this kind of similar to the way, UNC kind of the whole way led the game last night against Butler. Just kind of a better team, end up winning by double digits. I probably won't have a play in this game. Obviously, we know I like Gonzaga. I also have a future on them. I'm just letting it ride personally. But Drew, Donnie, You guys have anything on this
Yeah,
one?
looking at this game just as a whole, you have to give the nod to Gonzaga. I mean, just looking at the number, it's kind of astounding the way, Xavier's come along. I think they had some favorable matchups early on with Maryland and Florida State. And, of course, a nice win. But let's not, kid ourselves. Arizona gave that game away and was up, around 7 to 8 points with about 2.5, maybe 3.5 minutes left in that one. The one thing I think Xavier's going to struggle with is the overall length and size of Gonzaga. Forget about Karnowski and Collins. You have Tilly coming off the bench. But Jonathan Williams at 6'9". I wonder if they match him up on Blewett there to try to limit his damage, because the kid's a really good defensive player. In the West Virginia game, you didn't get to see too much of it because they were calling a whistle every single time he was matched up one-on-one or even banging bodies with another defender. In this one, I just think Gonzaga, this is more of their pace. This is more their level of competition. And they've been in this position all year long, trying to cover anywhere between 10 to 15 points, even though this one is sitting just south of 10. I would lean Gonzaga in this one, but I'm not a big tournament bettor if I'm laying over 5 points. So going to have to take maybe a step back in this one and reevaluate. But I just think Gonzaga's size is going to be a little bit too much here for Xavier.
True.
Yeah, I really like Donnie's breakdown. I mean, I'm looking to bet on Gonzaga, but I'm not looking to lay 8. And actually, Big Man, I know I just missed your plug for St. Peter's, Texas State, but I just got to say one thing about this game. These are two teams that are 340 or worse in terms of pace as far as slowness. Ken Palm has this game at a total of 107. The market's now at 120.5. I know it's a lower postseason game, so kind of an open atmosphere. Could be more up and down. But as far as the total goes, I'm on the under. It's the only way I could recommend it. Just pace-wise, possession-wise, there's just not going to be a lot of it. It's projected at 54 possessions. I'm all over this under, Big Man.
Yeah, Donnie and I actually talked about that last night on Late Night on Campus, and the total open 116. Here's the problem that I have, and this is the this is the CIT, correct?
I believe so. I'm not even into. I haven't been betting the CIT. I'm just going off of just pure numbers.
Well, no, the reason I say that is just because I know that obviously the NIT has experimented with rules and that kind of thing. And for me, it's hard for me to bet unders with these rules, especially in the NIT. I can't back an under with teams that after 5 minutes or after, most teams are going to foul 5 times in 5 or 6, 7.
CIT, Big Man, that tournament.
Yeah, which and again, I gotta actually look. I'm pretty sure the rules are the same in the NIT and the CIT, but yeah, I hear you though. I mean, these teams are extremely low scoring. Both you mentioned 339 and 347 in pace. And for anyone that doesn't know, there's only 351 teams, so not very many other teams to worry about. Yeah, I mean, it looks obviously by the number looks like the right play. I actually kind of like the road team here. St. Peter's has been real good to all of us all year. I know, Ian, you've been high on them, and
Eileen Pete. Yeah, Eileen Pete. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and the problem is though, like I've said, all 4 of these teams, whether it's Campbell, Furman, St. Peter's, or Texas State, all very good against the spread. But for me, this St. Peter's team, I think, has got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I feel like they may have thought maybe they were one of the better teams in the MAC. I think the Sun Belts definitely was down this year. Yeah, I could see them go on the road and get a win here. But the under, you would think this is a 58-52 type of game for sure. We'll see.
Anyway, to Jeff for letting his Gonzaga future ride. Is basically trying to say to me, hey, Ian, put the Clippers down. No hedging. Put the Clippers down. This is betting, not gardening.
Yeah, I'll say this. I will say I hedge in the final normally, but I just don't want to give too much of my bet back by hedging too early. I think they're going to beat Xavier. I have no reason to think that they won't. In the final, probably. I had Wisconsin a couple years ago against Duke. I hedged. I mean, I won't say I don't, but too early can be a little, you're dipping into your bet a little bit. Let's get back. Yep. Let's get back to the rest of the games here. We have the other Elite Eight matchup today, Oregon against Kansas. This one is the late one at 8:45 p.m. A little bit earlier, thank God. Some of these games have been very late. Obviously, I don't care too much, but for the public that does, they've been late. Oregon, a 7-point underdog here, over under 156.5. Obviously, you want to make sure you take a look at the SBR odds screen, make sure you're getting the best of it. Guys, how do you step in front of Kansas here? Anyone?
No, I mean, yeah, taking a look at them, big man. If you look at actually the way Kansas did come down the stretch, let's even take into fact Josh Jackson didn't play in the TCU game that they lost. Had he played in that one, they probably run the table in the Big 12 championship and continue their demolition. Now, you might argue that it actually helped them, got to maybe step away from the game, extra days of practice, didn't have to go on that grind, playing 3 or 4 days in a row. But the UC Davis game, Michigan State and Purdue, they couldn't have been any more lopsided with pulling away. Oregon presents a different matchup. Both of these teams similar in the way they like to play, operate out of a 4-guard system, one athletic big man down low. Looking at this game opening up there on SBR odds, it looks like about 6. It's hovering between 6.5 and 7 at this point. Let's not forget where this game is played at again. What, maybe 30 minutes outside of Kansas's campus there. They play very well in that environment. It's going to be a lot of Jayhawk fans, similar that you saw last night with Kentucky playing in Memphis versus UCLA, a definite clear home advantage. But again, I'm not looking at laying over 5.5, 6 points. I think Oregon's getting a little bit of disrespect here just because the public has seen the annihilation of the last 3 games that Kansas has played. Don't leave out Oregon here. I mean, they're going to come right in. They have great coaching, great players, guys that can make shots at big times. I haven't, made a play or a move on this game yet, but again, it has to give me pause. Anything over 5, I'm probably going to lean here towards the dog.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you get in front of this Kansas team just like you get in front of Michigan and UCLA in the last round. You're looking at a public that's probably making a little overestimate based on recent performance. I think Kansas is a great team. I think they win this game. The 5 seems like a big number to me. My numbers are more near 2 or 3. Obviously, there's Boucher injury that needs to be accounted for that. There's a little bit of home court advantage to think about too, but 5 seems mighty big. Or 6? Or it just seems big.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, I will point out, and I had Oregon the other night against Michigan. I don't think that the Boucher injury has been that big of a deal in this tournament against them. They haven't really faced a team just yet that has a big like a Swanigan or I don't think it's going to come to fruition against Kansas either. Landon Lucas is not a guy that's a particularly strong big man down low. He's not going to kill you on the offensive end either. Listen, Jordan Bell's done a nice job. We forget he was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, but yeah, again, if this game comes down, listen, Dylan Brooks can't play like he did against Michigan. If he plays like that, they're going to get blown out of the water because Kansas has so many ways to beat you at the guard position, whether it's Josh Jackson, Devontae Graham, or Frank Mason. I'm just not willing to jump in front of them right now. It's not really something I want to do. They'll advance. Oregon's been very good. They've been very impressive. Tyler Dorsey's been really good as well. He's going to have a big game, but these two are going to have to play really well for them to win this game. I just don't really know that I like some of the glue guys that Oregon has over the glue guys that Kansas does. They're getting input from everybody. I don't know that I'm willing to step in front of that right now. And
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I do think Kansas wins this, and then finally my 3 Pac-12 teams are overrated. Starts looking a little better than it did 4 days ago.
Sure. Great call. Yeah, you've been pretty low on the Pac-12, and I think a lot of people are pretty high. It's one of the better conferences obviously in the country. They've had a lot of really good games, but do they have a team that can win this whole thing? I'm not exactly sure. Drew, Ian Cameron, any opinion on Oregon, Kansas?
Yeah, big man. I mean, one thing, betting Kansas, and actually they're getting bet as we speak now on the SBR odds screen. It's showing, but Kansas has struggled at the free throw line, which I know you've brought up many times. It kind of makes me pump the brakes, especially laying this number. And the way that Kansas knocks down threes, that's actually something Oregon excels at, is defending the three. So that matchup alone is going to keep me off of this. I mean, I was looking to bet on Kansas just killing people. I like betting, the hot team, the trend is your friend type of betting. But I'm not sure about this matchup laying this many points.
I will point out, and this is something that I actually used to. That's a great point because I used that angle against Michigan. I thought, look at Oregon, 22nd in the country defending the three at 31.3%, or whatever it was, and Michigan didn't have much of a problem against that. It's not all about defending the three; it's about how you close out defending the three. Their closeouts were slow, especially early on. They had issues doing that. And again, I'm a trend as your friend kind of guy as well. But even in big games, I feel like the best players are going to hit the shots that they need to hit. But I agree that is a tough angle as well. Oregon is very good against the three. But again, we see it's always situational as well in this tournament. Now you only have a day to prepare for your opponent, as opposed to Dana Altman, who had 5 or 6 days to prepare for Michigan and threw out a pretty good game plan and won the game. Now you don't have that. For me, it's hard to get involved too highly with these dogs. To me, I'm going to be looking the other way, probably as far as small plays on Gonzaga and on Kansas. I just think their elite teams will show through here and kind of do what they need to do. But, hey, who knows? I kind of agree with Mike here on the chat. He says Kansas in a romp. I think these are both double-digit wins, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know what? And when it comes to Kansas here, I think there's point spread value on Oregon in this game. I really do. But it's at the point now where I'm especially when it's so close to Lawrence, Kansas at the Sprint Center to go in front of this Jayhawks team. Do you buy into Oregon's performance against Michigan being a sign of a defensive turnaround? I was on the over in that Oregon-Michigan game, and it came up short, and their defensive performance stunned me really in that game. Now, is it a factor of more time to prepare, more time to practice, get integrated defensively at that end of the basketball court without Boucher, or was it something that they can carry on moving forward in terms of better defensive play by this Oregon team? Because you look at the 3 games without Boucher before that, Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament, Rhode Island and Iona in the first 2 tournament games, they were shredded at the defensive end of the court. And Kansas and Iona sort of have similarities in the kind of lineup they run out there. And Oregon really struggled defensively in that game. I think that they are going to revert back to struggling defensively a little bit in this game, especially as Big Man pointed out, only 48 hours, less than that, for Dana Altman to get ready for a Kansas team that has just as many scoring weapons as Michigan, if not more. Look at the box score against Purdue. I mean, you had Frank Mason, Devontae Graham, 26 points. When Graham's shooting the 3 ball as well as he has, that makes them very tough to beat. Mikhailuk had 10 points. Josh Jackson had 15. LeGerald Vick off the bench had 12 points. I mean, unbelievable balance, unbelievable depth of scoring from this Kansas team. I think it's too much for Oregon. I think my favorite play on this game is over the total, 156.5. I used Kansas Purdue over the total on Thursday, an easy winner there. Oregon's transition defense is going to be tested. I don't think it's very good, or I don't think it's as good without Boucher. They have been running a little bit of a faster pace without Boucher, and Kansas can absolutely kill you with transition buckets. So I think we get a high-scoring game, and again, if we get fouls late, that helps the cause.
Kansas has won their games in this tournament by 38, 33, and 20. They actually, and I've told Donnie this, I have a little thing that I do every year with a group of people that I know where we bid on teams. We pick teams, we get involved, and we make a big pot, and we bid on certain teams as far as how much they are. And there's actually a prop you can bet in this little game that we play. Who will get blown out? So you pick a team on who you think will get blown out by the most, and you pay for that team, so it's usually a 16 seed, and you get 5% of the take of the whole group. And we picked Texas Southern. That was the pick him and I took. Texas Southern lost by 39 points in their first game. I actually was sweating a lot in that Kansas, because for most of that game, late in that game, it was a 40-41 point game. This Kansas team is not a team. They're the one team that I'm concerned about that's going to beat a team by 40 and screw me on my 5% bet because the 5% of the pot's $5,000 probably. So, yeah, look, Kansas is a team we've all seen. I just don't want to step in front of a team playing this well right now. You mentioned kind of the balance. It's been interesting, and it's been really impressive. Last thing I will say, guys, just one other thing on Gonzaga, which I was interested in and noticed that the panel didn't bring up, Ed. I thought you would bring this up maybe. They have not played very well offensively in this tournament. Their guards have not been good. Karnowski's been kind of in and out. I mean, he can be dominant. We all know that, but they haven't put together that great offensive game just yet. And I think Donnie Wrightson makes a very good point about the level of kind of Xavier kind of being on the level of teams that they play is a good point. And I think in today's games, I think this is probably your best bet. I probably won't be on either of these as far as premium plays, but Does anyone want to comment on Gonzaga not even playing their best game and still moving through here?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. They're kind of dropping in my offensive efficiency numbers. I would like to point. I mean, West Virginia and Northwestern are two very good defensive teams. So maybe that partially explains it. I mean, if they don't break out against the 64th ranked Xavier defense, then we can start saying more things. I was really impressed with the way Northwestern gets after it on defense. I think Collins deserves a great job for that. So I don't make too much of it. They missed a lot of foul shots. Like I said, they missed a bunch of foul. Williams Goss missed a foul shot. He's a 90% shooter. A couple of loose balls and stuff. I'm not too concerned about it. Everything was going West Virginia's way, and they found a way to win. So it doesn't concern me that much.
I'm not big. I just want to say one thing. I'm not big on that momentum angle or whatever it is, but I will point out here, this is the one team left that has a lot of upperclassmen, a lot of guys that have played for Mark Few for a long period of time. He's never been to a Final Four. I think we see some added momentum today and say, you know what? Let's go out and get to the Final Four here. We got a shot. This team's – we're going to beat this team. We're going to go ahead. I'm not big on that momentum angle, but I do think it weighs a little bit into this game. Obviously, Mark Few's done a lot for these kids that are in Gonzaga right now. Most of them have been with him for a long time, Karnowski and some of the others. I think that weighs a little bit in here.
And they got to be loving their side of the bracket, too. I mean, Xavier, I think you'd rather play Xavier than Arizona, and then you're looking
they have a waltz, right. Yeah,
South Carolina and Florida, while all those other teams are beating each other up on this other side of the bracket.
Yeah, they'll be favorites in all the games coming up here left.
Well, until the final.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't think they'll be a favorite to North Carolina in the final.
Oh no, I'm saying in this side of the bracket, they're to be a favorite against every team. So, yeah, I agree with that. Also, anyone think that weighs into this?
I'll say one thing about this game, actually. Nigel Williams-Goss, to me, if I'm a Xavier backer or fan or want them to win this game, I'm a little concerned about him coming off that 2 of 10 game, 10 points. I think you're going to see a much better Nigel Williams-Goss in this game. And Jeff brings up an interesting point. Does Mark Few in that pregame speech say, come on, guys, you got a chance to make some history today. First time for Gonzaga in the Final Four, and you could be the reason for that. You can be part of that. Let's get it done. And do they just put the hammer down? That could be something that Mark Few goes to in his little pregame spiel and to get this team revved up for this one.
And this is why I think he's one of the best coaches in the country, because he is a master at preparing his teams for games. He is fantastic at it. And I urge any of you, for proof of that, go watch HBO last year. They did a documentary on this team last year. And there were some trying times for this team. They were possibly not going to get to the tournament last year. They had to go and win the West Coast Conference tournament to get into the tournament. And they had a pretty good team last year with Wiltshire and Sabonis and some of the guys that they had. So he's a master at getting his teams prepared. In a game like this, in a short turnaround, I want Mark Few as my coach over anyone.
I said to Jeff on Twitter, I'm going to be apoplectic. I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm going to have a seizure, something like that if Xavier wins this game, because I'll be shocked. I mean, I'm not going to be able to handle it.
Listen,
we'll see what happens.
Donnie and I were talking about this. For the state of college basketball, if we have a Xavier, South Carolina, I mean, listen, I'm not going to be interested. I don't think many people will be interested. If you thought the Madison Square Garden was ticket slowed, the only people that are going to be in that game are going to be people from Columbia, South Carolina, and wherever, Cincinnati, Ohio, wherever Xavier is.
Well, that's going to be the early game, and everyone will come for the later Final Four game.
Yeah,
television ratings.
Yeah, just
they'll get the 5:30 p.m. shaft. Yeah.
Yep.
Does anyone think, just from a pure spot advantage and a pure basketball standpoint, we would have to agree that if Xavier wins this game, it would probably be the big upset of the year. I mean, I don't think it's possible, really, just from every standpoint of what we look at in games. I mean,
it's always possible, man.
Oh, sure.
South Carolina can score points like they're scoring. It's possible.
Well, no, I'm saying it. Yeah, I'm saying in this game, and I don't want to be that guy that says it, but it's just from a great perfect storm standpoint, it's hard for me to think that Gonzaga loses this game. But hey,
that's great.
One time this year, it's not impossible.
You know how much I love this team, so I'm glad you think like that, big man.
Yeah. Hey, we know I've been high on them. I've tried to root this team in all year. Guys, quickly, let's just touch a little bit just on tomorrow's games. We have obviously two other ones. Then we'll kind of wrap everything up and put a bow on it and say good night. South Carolina, Florida. look, SEC. I feel like we've seen this matchup about 8 times this year, but we haven't. We've only seen it twice. You look at the first 2 games, South Carolina won by 4. I don't know if you guys remember that game, 57-53. It was a hideous game as far as offense was concerned. 35% for Florida, 29% for South Carolina. Florida was 0 for 17 from the 3-point line. A really brutal affair. And then Florida came back and beat them pretty soundly in the second game. I'll tell you what, guys. I really like this Florida team. I obviously had them last night, so that kind of added to it. But I like this group. I think they're obviously very resilient. How about that block last night from Canyon Barry? That was fantastic. That was obviously the play of the game as far as before that big shot. But South Carolina, you have to wonder. I mean, I'm waiting myself on when will they just become South Carolina? I mean, we all know they're not good offensively, but they've been pretty good offensively in this tournament. And last night, defensively, they were fantastic. I think these are the 2 best defenses left in this tournament, maybe other than Gonzaga. Anyone have an opinion on this SEC showdown?
There's no way I'm laying points. No way. No way. Not in a game that's going to be low scoring, not in a game that's going to be a grinder. Now, I had South Carolina pretty big last night. Doesn't mean automatically I knee jerk right back to them here, but you got to take a long, hard thought about laying points in a game like this. It's going to be grinder. It's going to be slow pace. It's going to be defensive minded. And in South Carolina, I mean, all of a sudden there's guys that are springing up left and right around Sindarius Thornwell and starting to score for them. Chris Silva, Dwayne Notice, Rakeem Felder all of a sudden is starting to produce and score for South Carolina. It's things that just didn't happen down the stretch of the SEC season. It was give the ball to Thornwell and let him do everything. Now, some of these guys around Thornwell, the supporting cast, getting some confidence. I don't want to say for sure if South Carolina's offensive momentum that they've built up against Baylor and Duke is going to continue forever in this tournament, but it's very real right now. They've got it in their last 2 games. It's just one of those games I feel is going to be a grinder. The lean for me has to be to South Carolina in this one, plus the points. It's just a situation where defensively they're every bit as good as Florida. It's just a question of can that offensive spark they've found maintain itself for at least one more game.
I think the advantage you have in a game like this is, i.e., whoever the stronger team you think is, they've seen this team twice. They know how this team is. They've played them in the regular season. Obviously, we throw out kind of what happened in the regular season because it's a 1-game playoff, and you never know. But yeah, I think there's certain advantages in this game. I'm actually pretty excited about this game. I'm going to have a play on it, and I'm excited about it. I think there are some decided edges here, but we'll see. Anyone else have an opinion early on in this South Carolina-Florida matchup?
Yeah, just keep in mind, big man, that second game you talked about, that was when South Carolina was really going through a bad time. I think they lost 4 out of 5, including they lost to Alabama. They were looking real ugly. They went and got blown out in Gainesville. This is a different South Carolina team. I'm not exactly sure what was going on then. I know, actually Thornwell was out for a portion of the season, so I'm thinking that has something to do with it. But right now, I mean, South Carolina is getting bet big. It opened 4, now it's down to 3.5. So, and one thing I'm kicking myself for is that South Carolina Baylor game. Pace wise, it was just screaming to bet the under. I didn't have the balls to get there. I just with South Carolina scoring all those points against Duke, even though they were getting kind of helped out by the refs in the second half. I just wish I could go back in time, one of those things. But I also feel that this 135 right now is a little high. So if I was betting this game, I know it's tough to bet unders, and the panel doesn't like it as much, but I'd lean towards the under here.
I don't have a problem with unders in this tournament. I just don't like them in the and by the way, the CIT does do the experimental rule changes as well. So just keep that in mind when you're betting unders. Obviously the NCAA tournament, I'm a little bit more inclined to bet unders just because there's just rules don't make it easy. And I'll say it again. The NCAA has come out and made it clear they want more fouls called. They want more points. They want more excitement in games. They're going to make it a point to call more fouls. We've seen it in this tournament. And we've seen, 40 fouls anymore is kind of a norm. 50 is kind of what we've seen. I mean, it's hard to watch at times. Ed, you had a point?
Yeah, when I look at this game, I think South Carolina's had a pretty decent run with their offense that we know is not particularly good. I think that gets a lot harder against Florida's sixth-ranked defense. And I don't know. I mean, I honestly, my numbers think that number is pretty fair at 3.5. But it's easy for an offense that's not very good, that got hot, to kind of come crashing back to earth against a good defense.
And that's the great thing about this tournament is Drew made a point about, is this South Carolina team, they're a better team than they were. What team is South Carolina? Is it the team that all year struggled to score the basketball, or is it the team that in the last 2 games looks like Kansas all of a sudden? You just never know. I think Ed makes a great point. Most times they're going to crash back to the mean and say, you know what, Gonzaga's a team that's always going to shoot 50%. That's just what they do. They're a good offensive team. South Carolina isn't. They're not a team that can, withstand having and shooting 50% every game. It's not going to happen. Who knows when it'll be. 2 great defense teams. So, Drew, you might have something with the under. Donnie writes, I know you're looking forward to the 4th and final game here, which I got to tell you, I feel like you're a closet Kentucky fan. You seem to always kind of get all perked up when we talk about Kentucky.
Ah, see, you're wrong about that. I had Wichita State against Kentucky.
Oh, you did, but you've been pretty. Yeah, you've been pretty adamant though on mentioning them on the different shows that you and I have, and you seem to have been backing them. And I see you're all giddy about the game tomorrow. Why are you so giddy about Kentucky?
Because I'm not really giddy about Kentucky itself. It's just athletes on athletes. I love the way the game played out last night, obviously having Kentucky. But looking again to the game tomorrow, you have South Carolina and Florida in a game that's probably going to be, Boer Fest, not too much going on there, some hardcore defense, just waiting around for that Kentucky-North Carolina wide open style. We saw it with the way they played. I believe, how much was it Monk that went off in the first game when they played, I believe, in Las Vegas versus NC? Early in the year, I think he had like 47 points, and I
think that's right.
Lost to open the T-Mobile Arena back then.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I look for more of the same. It's going to be just running up and down the court. The one thing I do give pause to is you're going to play a little bit more into North Carolina's hands. They can. We've seen the way they played down the stretch. They've seen Kentucky earlier. Kentucky's going to have a much harder time than UCLA, who plays little to no defense out there at times. But I do look forward to that one. I'm going to be examining that one as we go all day long. Just love the way Kentucky played. Love the way they played last night. Really took it upon themselves to take a ball out of the game, and it was impressive to watch.
Yeah, their defense has been significantly better. I think we've talked about that before on the roundtable. I think they're a team that, to me, I think they're going to get to the final. I like this team. Again, it's a tough task to go ahead and beat UNC, but lately they've been really good on the defensive end. They're really starting to buy into that, and got to give it to Cal a little bit. He's got this team to kind of turn a corner and play solidly defensively on that edge of the floor. Anyone have an opinion on this Kentucky UNC game?
As a basketball fan, I can't wait for this game. I think it's going to be fantastic. So these are the 2. I've actually done some analysis of how coaches perform in the tournament relative to regular season expectations, according to my numbers. And these are the 2 coaches that outperform that expectation the most. And actually, Roy Williams a little bit more than Cal. Cal, you can kind of understand just because he tends to have young teams that develop over the course of the season. Roy Williams tends to have more kind of senior teams, so I'm not exactly sure. Maybe a little bit more of that is noise. And he doesn't have the greatest tournament record kind of if you look back through his time at Kansas, but his teams perform about 1.8 points better than what regular season expectation would say. Numbers like this one, North Carolina by a touch, 3 points seems like a lot to me at this point, but I'm sure I can talk myself into that number because I really do like this North Carolina team.
Yeah, I'm excited about this game because I'm actually still alive in my bracket pool, and between me and someone else, and they have UNC, I have Kentucky moving on. So this is a pretty big game as far as that's concerned. You two from sportsmemo.com, any opinion here?
Go for it, Ian.
Well, Kentucky, the way they're playing defense right now, it's a tough game for me, to be honest, on first glance. But the way they're playing defense right now, it's hard for me to bet against them catching points right now. Ever since that LSU game, Kentucky won the game, but it was like, 97-91, 87-80, something like that. And Calipari went off on his team. We got to start playing defense. Well, from that moment on, they've been playing defense, and they just put the clamp down on Lonzo Ball second half against UCLA. I'm sure that made Donnie very, very happy to see that Kentucky second half. I mean, they were just fantastic at that end of the court. And if they play defense like that here against North Carolina, they're going to be live to win this game. They're, I believe, 63rd in the country, Kentucky, clearing the defensive glass in terms of their defensive rebounding percentage. That is always a stat I look for when an opponent faces North Carolina. You've got to be somewhat competent on the defensive glass in terms of defensive rebounding, because North Carolina, so many of their points come from second, third, and fourth chances when they crash the offensive boards. So Kentucky might be able to do at least a decent job limiting North Carolina's second and third chances on the offensive glass. Right now, initial lean Kentucky, but I'm with everybody else. Should be a great game. One last thing, too, about the Florida game. Florida, if they're going to cover that number, lay in the points, they got to do a better job late in that game. It can't be nails on a chalkboard, grind the clock, do nothing on offense, sit on it, sit on the lead. They've got to be more aggressive against South Carolina than they were against Wisconsin, because it almost cost them that game, and it'll cost them this one if they don't change that philosophy.
Great breakdown. True.
Yeah, Ian, good point. And, just real quick to wrap it up, I mean, when you go back to like what Donnie was saying at the T-Mobile Arena there in Las Vegas, I think that game was 103-100 and, one of the highest scoring games I can remember. And I don't believe it went to overtime. But, yeah, going back to this game, if you look at Kentucky's possessions, 62 against Wichita State, total possessions against UCLA 67. I thought that was pretty surprising. They're not getting up there in terms of tempo wise as much, at least the last two games. So might look to be a contrarian here and bet the under. Rattle that bell again. But the short turnaround is also an interesting caveat. I'm not exactly sure who that helps coaching wise. What do you guys think?
I mean, both these teams I think are going to be blue blood enough to be prepared. I don't know. I think in this one, I don't know if time off is a good thing. I just think it's time to get out there and run, play the game. As far as the total, I think bookmakers did a nice job of adjusting that UCLA game. Obviously a little bit higher tempo team with UCLA, but that game was 167, a little too high. They priced this one at 158.5. So obviously a little bit better as far as making a change, because listen, we all know 167, 168 is way too high, no matter who plays. Under Sharps came in, got it right. But, Squares again bet the over last night and came up short in a game. To me, that one kind of screamed under. And again, I've made a point. Any total above 165 in college basketball, I think it's important that you look to the under. It's very difficult to get 165. It just is.
To answer Drew's question, I mean, I think Roy Williams is not great tactically by any stretch in terms of an in-game, adjustments kind of guy. So maybe a slight edge on a short turnaround to Coach Cal and John Calipari. Because the one thing I liked about Calipari is, and he said it in his post-game press conference, in the second half, we decided we're going to run everything through De'Aaron Fox. He's going to be the guy that's going to stir the drink for us in the second half to beat UCLA. And boy, that plan worked out well. I mean, they just let De'Aaron Fox basically take over that game. He did, made great decisions with the basketball, took it to the rim routinely. So Calipari's halftime speech to his team and adjustments say, we're going to play through Fox. Boy, it worked out perfectly. Bodes well for any halftime adjustments he may be looking to make here against the Tar Heels.
It's going to be great. 2 good days of basketball coming up here. I will say this, guys, don't forget the small tournaments. Don't forget, some basketball early on next week. I'll be here if you have any questions. I'm sure all the panel will be as well. Before we get out of here with some plugs, actually, let's go right to them. Thanks to Justin for producing the show. Thanks to everyone. We got a lot of good banter back on the chat here as far as some good chat as well. If you have a best bet, guys, you want to give out a free play, feel free. I think the listeners will gladly appreciate that. We'll start with Donnie Wright. So, Donnie, where can we find you at, and what do you have going on?
Yeah, come find me at DonnieRightside.com. Having a great month of March. Again, I'm a lower volume type player, 12-5 in the month, good for 70% and a return on investment rate of over 35% for the month of March. So closing strong there, and I hope to continue that. Also find me on SBR as a contributor, late night on campus, and also the right side of campus. Having a lot of fun and really appreciated doing this show all throughout the season with a lot of these great guys on here on the roundtable. We'll hope to continue that into the future. But I definitely, learned a lot over this and also had a lot of fun. And just picking the brains of smart handicappers out there is exactly the way to do it. It might push you over the top. And again, thanks for having me on the roundtable. Really appreciate it all year long.
We will be back next week with another edition, one of the final episodes of the weekly college basketball roundtable. Ian Cameron, how you do? Where can we find you and what do you have going on?
Sportsmemo.com for daily plays, NHL, college basketball, and soon to be Major League Baseball and CFL once we get in June. I tell you, football for me starts in June. None of this September nonsense. And we've got on Twitter at Bobano. You can find me there. Daily play of the day videos at Sportsbook Review. In terms of a free play best bet, Jeff said throw one out there. I'll throw out the one I gave on the Saturday video. Let's go over the total, Oregon, Kansas. I think we can get over that 156.5. I'll have a Sunday play of the day video from one of the two games. I think you already know where I'm leaning with both games, but we'll pick something from one of those two games and do a video for that. So check that out, sportsbookreview.com. And I mentioned it last roundtable, uwager.eu. Support the sponsors that deliver the great sports betting, that help deliver SBR deliver the great sports betting content, all free for you on a daily basis with our roundtable, with Jeff and Donnie, with Teddy and Paulie on SportsBit, Odds Couple, everybody. Great free sports betting video content, but it only keeps going if you support us.
And let's remember, Ian is from Canada, so when he says CFL, he knows what's going on in the CFL. So make sure you look out for that coming up here. Right. Drew Martin, where can we find you?
Man, just to add to that, I know last year I was betting Ian's CFL. The man knows his stuff. I don't know what his numbers are overall, but the last 2 years, I definitely owe you a beer next time we're together, Ian.
I'll sign up for that in a heartbeat. Yeah.
All right, buddy. Yeah, Drew Martin. You can find me at Drew Martin Bets on Twitter, also at Sports Memo, and a regular contributor here at SBR. Really enjoyed talking with all you guys, Donnie, Ed, Ian, Big Man. You guys really know your stuff, and just happy to be a part of this. And as far as a free play, I'm going to go with the contrarian side. Kentucky, North Carolina, looking to go on this under. So that's where I'm going to have my money tomorrow.
Very good. Ed Fang, where can we find you at, and what do you have going on?
I'm at the Power Rank on Twitter. You can always find my stuff at thepowerrank.com. Sign up for the free email newsletter. It'll get you lots of good college and NFL content heading into next season. I'm already starting to think about that a little bit. Although I am going to take off a week and hang out with my boys right after the end of this tournament. So I'm looking forward to that too. But thepowerrank.com.
Awesome. Always a great site, Power Rank, for all your information as far as, the scientific, the numbers, all that sort of thing. Last but not least, I am the big man on campus. As far as for me today, as I am looking forward to the later games, I'm talking World Cup qualifiers, 4-2-1 yesterday with those plays. I work hard on these plays. It's one of my true favorite niches in the world of sports. I enjoy soccer or football, as many would call it. I'm looking, guys, today. I'm looking at the likes of Estonia and Cyprus, France, Luxembourg, Faroe Islands, Andorra. Where else would you rather be on a Saturday? I'm talking World Cup qualifiers, and I'll have some for free. I'm also tonight, guys, going to watch a little live basketball. Reading High. I have a connection. Pennsylvania, Quad A, 6A state championship. Hershey, PA, Reading going for it.
You're in Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
Where at?
I'm in Lancaster, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I've driven through there many times.
Awesome. Yeah, Reading High, 44 years since they've been to the state final. I have a little connection to the program. Excited to go watch them play, hopefully get the job done. Lonnie Walker heading to Miami next year. Look out for him, number 4. So, yeah, I am the big man of campus. Feel free to find me right side of campus, late night on campus, and World Cup qualifiers a little bit later. Guys, a little trivia question before we go. Where are the Faroe Islands? Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
Somewhere in Europe.
They got cats there?
Now my geography skills failing are going to be brought to the forefront here, apparently. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone have an opinion? Drew?
I don't want to sound stupid, man. No, I have no idea.
I'll say it's in the Mediterranean somewhere.
You would be incorrect. It's actually near Iceland in Norway. It's a small archipelago in the ocean. It's really literally in the middle of
Would
the
have
ocean.
never guessed that. No.
So yeah, I'm a geography weirdo. I could probably name all the countries in Africa in a minute if you gave me the opportunity.
I do want to throw out one quick CFL note, though, that I'm excited for in June. Vince Young trying to revive his pro football career here in the CFL this season.
Good point.
It may be a complete shit show and a disaster because it's such a steep learning curve to learn the CFL style of game, but it should be fun.
By the
I
way,
actually saw Vince Young in Austin the other week, and he seems pretty excited about it.
wouldn't you? I mean, you've been sitting around for 4 years or whatever it's been. He actually played for the Eagles at one point, Donnie. I know you remember that.
Dream team, yes. I certainly remember that dream team we had.
Yeah, he was the guy that made that ridiculous comment, I believe. Before we go, guys, Devin Booker last night became the 6th player to score 70 or more points in an NBA game. The second, though, to do that feat and lose.
And they still lost by 10.
Right. They lost by 10 points somehow. They were celebrating in the locker room like they just won the NBA Finals. Listen, very amazing feat, surely. But it brought me back to the days of Allen Iverson when he would drop 55 and they would somehow lose the game. You got to figure out a way to win that game, Suns. Come on.
Well, Iverson probably took
He scored
70
70. They lost by 10.
Yeah.
But they did cover, though, so give them credit for that. Suns plus the points did get there.
Crazy. I would like to talk to you guys sometime about your opinion on the NBA as far as from a betting perspective. I love fading the steam in the NBA personally. All right, guys, that'll be it. We will head out here. I am the Big Man of Canvas. Thanks as always, everyone, for joining me here. Appreciate all of you listening. We'll be back next week with a what are we, Justin? Tuesday? I always get confused on what day we do the roundtable.
I think we're doing Wednesday, Saturday. Is my understanding of it.
Okay, Tuesday, right? Or Wednesday roundtable. We'll be back. Join us then as we head into the Final Four. We'll be back. Everyone have a great weekend. See you later.